Here we go again. So we're going to get through the news, and then we're going to get into something that's been going on and going on and going on, and I'm going to find positive in it. That's what I'm going to do. Sidney Crosby will be out at least 6 weeks following surgery. So core muscle surgery, sports hernia, which isn't the same as your regular hernia, but it can turn into one. And just the idea that you get this tear and it's a groin muscle area tear, and it can So I'm glad he had the surgery. I'm glad he had it right away. Apparently this has been bugging him on and off, though, since the start of the season. And I was going to talk in some of the reviews and previews about how Crosby's production seemed to be a little bit down from where it had been last year. Well, this may very well be it. It's hard to skate when you're dealing with a core muscle injury. So he'll be out for a minimum of 6 weeks. The New York Islanders, their point streak is at 13 games now. 13. It's pretty good. Notice I've also got the Capitals on the board because they're 11-0-2 in their last 13. And their fans would not be happy if I didn't mention that they have a point in at least 13 games as well. Also an Oiler. I look at the orange and blue and I go, Oilers, it's Islanders. Ladd is on waivers. So Andrew Ladd, he's going to the American League. So this isn't just a conditioning stint. They're sending him down. And he has a $5 million cap hit that runs right till 2023. So GMs won't touch it. He's not going anywhere. Ladd is going to end up in the minors, which is too bad. But his overall numbers have been dropping for a long time. And for the Islanders, with a point streak at 13 games, I think it's a matter of we don't want to rock the boat. We have a team that's really, really good right now, and we don't see where Ladd fits into it, and we can't find a trading partner either. He may very well be added to the list. Maybe he and Ho-Sang get packaged together. I don't know. Maybe Lou can figure something out. Speaking of Lou's, Roberto Luongo has now been named special advisor to the GM. I don't know that he's necessarily assistant to the GM, but if he doesn't have a Dwight Schrute shirt, I recommend he go out and buy one because now he's the special advisor to the GM. And to me, that sounds like they're getting him into the organization. They're going to show him the ropes when it comes to the management thing. And eventually he may end up being an assistant general manager because most hockey players, when they retire, they have their time where they're like, all right, this is great. It's fun being retired. And then they want to get back into the world of hockey in any form, just to give back, or in this case, management role. Once you've been in that world, it seems like it's very difficult to just flat out quit it. Speaking of quitting, Kovalchuk, the situation's still kind of up in the air, according to Pierre LeBrun. They're talking back and forth. There is a bonus to be paid on December 15th. After that bonus gets paid, it might be a little more palatable to trade him. But you still got to pay him $4 million next year, and the cap hits $6 million next year. His contract was signed when he was at 35 years of age, meaning it's more difficult. So even if he goes, yeah, no, you can trade me, you can't buy him out. You can't, and there's nothing you can do. That money's going to sit there. So for them to get rid of him, it's going to cost them something, and they don't have a first rounder that they would like to part with over the next couple of years, as they're sitting at the bottom of the standings. It's a tough situation for the Kings right now and for their fans. On the why situation, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to side with people on why. The NWHL is looking at the possibility of expanding into the Greater Toronto area. Why? Well, apparently there's a new investor and there's more money that's going to be in the league, so they're looking at more teams. Now, the top salary in the league is $18,900. And then there's potential sponsorship money for star players on those teams on top of that. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these women have talked about paying for their own travel, their own equipment, and everything. And when you get it all figured out, $18,000 doesn't cover a lot. And this is the top salary. So again, and we have this discussion a lot about whether or not a women's league can be viable. I think it can be, but not competing with other leagues, I don't think being a full-fledged league necessarily works. I think they'll need a completely different business model. So while we still have a bunch of the best women hockey players in the world, are inarguably in the world, sitting out and saying, all right, and they're doing their own tour and everything, and they're trying to make a system that works, the NWHL, the league that has been struggling, is looking at expanding. That's insane. I know it's a non-profit, but it shouldn't mean probably setting money on fire. And looking at the Toronto area, yeah, Toronto, you've got this built-in hockey audience, but I don't know that that's going to work. And I agree with comments I was reading about this, which is why don't they look into smaller towns, smaller venues, something that they can get, your locals more excited about than putting it in Toronto where there's just too much competing with it. I agree. I think if they put a team in Toronto, with the current state of things with this league, I think they'd be accelerating its demise. We've seen it before where a league will just expand, and all right, everybody gets a team, and then they can't make it work. The first thing that comes to mind from a hockey standpoint is the World Hockey Association, the WHA. Way too many teams, way too fast. They moved everybody around, and it became an absolute joke by the end of it. So yeah, we'll see what the NWHL does, and I know everybody's going to say, oh, they shouldn't even have a league at all. I think having a league is fine if it makes sense. That's the only argument I've made. Women's league makes sense. Speaking of making sense, the big news in Canada right now is that Jessica Allen, who is a host on The Social, and if you haven't seen The Social, it's the talk in Canada where we have a bunch of women sitting around chatting. And that can always generate controversy. Well, they get involved in the whole Don Cherry thing, and the only thing I can think is they talked for 9 minutes about the whole Don Cherry thing and what he said and what was wrong with it. And she jumps in with her experience, which was that when she was in high school, all the hockey players in her school were white boys. They were bullies. She insinuates they weren't smart. They weren't people she wanted anything to do with. She complained about the fact that hockey is so expensive and parents could spend their money elsewhere. You could go on a trip, kind of insinuating like this is a waste of money. It has generated a lot of outrage among parents of kids who are playing hockey that are paying a lot of money. It has generated outrage from people who say, wait a minute. So she can say this. She can straight out say white boys, which she did. And she's keeping her job. The show has said, oh, no, we're standing behind her 100%. My answer to that is really nothing. And the worst part of it is that on Twitter itself, she kind of fought back. So, of course, on Twitter, you're going to get a lot of comments that are really nasty because that's what happens. And one of those comments she retweeted out, and she basically stated, and this is why I said what I said, because people are like this. And it's like, oh, crap, she's doubling down on it. Wow. And then the backlash has got so bad, she's made her Instagram private, and she's fired Jess Allen is now a trending topic in Canada. Has been really since Tuesday. And I initially looked at this and I thought, well, why? I don't want to talk about this right now because, of course, the Cherry thing was still very, very fresh and not a big fan of the idea of doing more. So, I want to do a bit of a shout out here to Jerry D because Jerry D is fantastic. Jerry D, for people who, again, don't know, he is generally known as a comedian, but he's an actor as well. And he tweeted out on this. And Jackie Redmond, Doug McLean have retweeted it. This was tweeted out yesterday. And I'm going to read it out to you fine people because it's great. Not all kids who play hockey are boys. Not all kids who play hockey are white. Not all kids who play hockey are bullies. Not all kids who play hockey are rich. Just want to make sure everyone knows this. And it's true. And I'll speak from my experience in this area. There were a number of kids that I went to school with who played hockey, and as I've stated in previous videos, my parents didn't have the kind of money to get all the equipment and take me out to the games, and with schedules being as they were, I really don't think my parents were going to wake up at 5 a.m. to get me to a rink, so that's just not going to happen, and then all the tournaments and all that other stuff. So the boys in my school that played hockey in general were physically fit, but they were usually the nicer kids. They were usually the ones that if somebody was getting bullied would step in and go, hey, that's enough of that crap. They were normally the ones that stepped in. And as somebody who got bullied a lot in school, it was never a hockey player that did it. I never, ever had a problem with somebody who played hockey. I would have instances where in floor hockey club, there'd be somebody who'd come in who played hockey and they had a bit of an ego, and I'd be like, oh no, my poor shins because I'm going to be blocking shots from this guy, and he thinks he can just put it through my legs. By which I mean just right through the ankle, not between the legs, just right through the ankle. Like Shannon could just stand where he is. I'm just going to put it through him. And in general, sometimes I felt like if you're playing floor hockey, you had to win respect from the guys who actually played hockey, because they'd have this whole, you don't know what you're doing because you're out here in a gym floor and I'm playing every weekend on ice, and I play during the week on ice. But there was always that respect. And I'm not saying she didn't have a poor experience, but man, could she have used better words. Yes, she could have. And this is now where things get kind of sort of dicey. It is. And I understand, and that's why I'm putting this in this video. I'm not going to put it in the title. Not putting it in the title. It's not going to happen. But I did want to throw this into this video for a little bit of discussion, because yeah, it's already been said. Nothing's going to happen to her. She's fine. She's fine. And there's a large portion of people in Canada, there have been parents who have come out and said, I take my kids to hockey games every day, and I spend a lot of money. We don't have a lot of money, but I'm spending a lot of money on my kid right now to get him into hockey. We've had that discussion on this channel just a couple days ago about how expensive hockey is and how there are programs. Tim Hortons has programs. There's all kinds of programs, community programs that try to get kids in to play hockey. And here's somebody just throwing a grenade and then going, didn't realize I'd pulled the pin when I threw the grenade. And what the grenade, yeah, that blew up. And I understand that we're in a really tumultuous situation where the whole country is basically fighting over this. But what I said, it's fine. And again, for her to come out and go, well, that's from my point of view. Okay. But isn't point of view what we're talking about here? So again, I've mentioned this before. I think there's a conversation to be had. I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to drag this country kicking and screaming, because that's what's happening in Canada right now. Kicking and screaming about who says what and who's allowed and who isn't and all of this other wonderful stuff. And I don't think this is necessarily the end of it. Because seriously, saying, well, all the hockey players are bullies. What school did you go to? Seriously. Well, they're all rich boys and they're bullies. Really? Because not in my situation. I also want to say, most of the guys who played hockey that I went to school with, most of them, their parents were in the military, because I live next to the military base in Chilliwack. And while in the military you make good money, I wouldn't call people in the military necessarily rich. And considering the risks that a lot of military take, whether they're peacekeeping or whatever they're doing. And you hear words like peacekeeping, you go, that's just peacekeeping. It's just standing there holding the gun, making sure nobody goes at each other. It's a dangerous job. I knew somebody who had a picture taken with a friend of his, and then the next day somebody else in their battalion stepped on a landmine that was like 6 inches from where they took that picture. The map that they had been given by locals of where all the landmines were, it was off. It was wrong. And he just, it messed him up. So when we talk about all this stuff and we talk about, we point all these fingers at everybody else, the real stories of all this stuff that goes on, yeah. So we'll see where this goes. This discussion is not over. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And again, I did a video not that long ago about how hockey players are really pretty good people, and I still believe that. And I think most of Canada still believes that. And I don't think we necessarily have to convince everybody that hockey players are great people, just like we're not convince everybody that hockey is a great sport who don't like it. This, though, she should have seen it coming. She really should have. If I, in my limited reach with the channel and with Twitter and with everything else, have decided, okay, my opinions, I have to make sure that, I see both sides and I don't just blurt stuff out. So for her to come out and blurt stuff out when she has a bigger social media following than I do, should have seen it coming. Let me know your thoughts, though. Again, civility, hopefully. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. We did hit 127,000 yesterday, which is fantastic. And I would like to thank William Wells for helping to fund this video through Patreon support, and for everybody who has supported this channel on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for that. And thank you to everybody out there who continues to watch my videos day by day. And we'll see what kind of news we have coming up over the next week. It should be really interesting. I've had people asking me about the Colorado Avalanche jersey as well. And I want to say this, that stadium jersey, once it's officially revealed, I have no problem with doing a video on it. The problem I've had is the videos I've seen are of youth jerseys. Youth jerseys are generally not as nice as the real ones. But yeah, it's ugly. So if you haven't seen the Colorado Avalanche stadium jersey, Aesthetics has posted about it. It's been posted on numerous Instagram accounts as well. And it is kind of ugly, but it's also completely different from anything else anybody's ever done. So it gets some marks for something that's completely different. So we'll see how things are, and it does make me wonder what the Kings are going to be wearing. Because if the Avs are that far crazy out there, the Kings probably are as well. Welcome back, Burger King. Okay, maybe not, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much. Let me know your thoughts about that as well, and I will talk to you again soon.